like people who use their faith as justification for doing what they know is wrong.
The president speaking out against his political opponents after being acquitted, what he says his goals are now.
Plus, the caucus results in Iowa still not fully reported. We have the latest on the razor-thin margin and how the Democratic frontrunners are responding.
And remembering those lost, how the Catholic Diocese of El Paso is honoring victims of the August 3rd shooting.
Where news comes first, from the Mesilla Valley and Las Cruces to El Paso and the borderland, this is ABC 7 at noon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us for ABC 7 at noon, on air and live online. I'm Madeline Ottilie.
And I'm Nick Patrick. And just a day after the impeachment trial wrapped up, President Trump touting his acquittal this morning at the National Prayer Breakfast, holding up copies of newspapers with the headlines, Senate's not guilty verdict.
The president also taking time to lash out at fellow Republicans.
And as the last few returns from Iowa come in, it's a deadlocked race between Senator Bernie Sanders and Mayor Pete Buttigieg, separated by just a fraction of a percentage point. After announcing they took in $25 million in January alone, Sanders' campaign now announcing major spending plans for staffing and advertising in upcoming Super Tuesday states, including Texas, while Buttigieg continues to ride the momentum from what he called a victorious showing in Iowa. Now, 7 candidates have qualified for the ABC's debate here in New Hampshire tomorrow night, and considering the rhetoric from the trial, it could be the most contentious so far. All right, switching gears now. Police have just announced the name of the person who died. This after a crash in central El Paso last night. Brand new at noon, police say 67-year-old Herlinda Castro was killed after her car was hit by a driver who ran a stop sign. That driver, 20-year-old Andreas Michael Johnson. Johnson was taken to the hospital along with Castro and a person riding in her car. Castro was pronounced dead at the hospital. Now, this all happened on North Piedra Street and Harrison Avenue. Police say speed was a factor in that crash, as well as Johnson's failure to yield the right-of-way. Police say charges are pending. And several first responders and doctors who helped during that August 3rd shooting were honored yesterday. Now, the Texas Medical Association calling those who helped that tragic day heroes. Invited honorees including doctors from UMC and Del Sol and first responders from El Paso County Emergency Services and the El Paso Police Department.
That day there was a lot of heroes and a lot of leaders that stood up, not just the doctors or nurses, but even the first responders.
It is nice to be recognized. It says a lot about our healthcare community. Those who responded that day, those who were there in case we needed more help. It says a lot about El Paso, that we're a community that's together.
A very well-deserved recognition to all the men and women who helped many patients and families that day. And also happening today, federal authorities are set to make an announcement about an ongoing investigation in El Paso. We now know that topic will be about Patrick Crusius, the suspected August 3rd shooter at Cielo Vista. We know the FBI and U.S. attorneys for the Western District of Texas will reveal more in a news conference. Now, it's scheduled to start at 5 o'clock. ABC 7 will live stream that at KVIA.com and the KVIA News app. And, of course, you can also watch ABC 7 at 5 for the complete live coverage. And also happening today, local businessman Billy Abraham will be in court for a probation hearing, this following his most recent arrest. Now, El Paso County jail records show Abraham was arrested for allegedly driving drunk. Now, our ABC 7 crew caught up with Abraham as he was being led by police officers from Central Regional Command to El Paso County Jail last week, when he gave our ABC 7 crews his version of why he was being arrested.
When he gets about halfway, I'm gonna...
Mr. Abraham. Mr. Abraham, what'd they charge you with?
Being Billy Abraham.
Being Billy Abraham. And according to El Paso Times, the drunken driving arrest resulted in Abraham violating the terms of his probation. He also was arrested on 10 counts of probation violation. And you may have trouble finding certain flavored vaping cigarettes in stores across the United States starting today. And that's because the FDA's push to clear the market of many of these products is now in effect. Last month, the federal agency announced companies must stop manufacturing, distributing, and selling most of the flavored cartridge-based e-cigarettes. Tobacco and menthol are the only two flavored cartridges still allowed in stores. The policy change comes amid concerns about the growing number of young people using e-cigarette products. Now, the FDA is giving businesses time to comply to that ban. It says it will wait to issue punishments against companies that don't comply until after May 12th.
More Americans are coming home from China facing weeks of quarantine.
This as the coronavirus continues to spread. ABC's Ian Panel is in Hong Kong with our complete coverage. Taking a break from those international headlines, we are taking a look outside. Now, earlier, about a half hour ago, parts of Trans Mountain were actually closed down as a single vehicle wreck was causing some issues. Now, nobody majorly hurt in that, thankfully, but still, when we look across the map, some minor crashes coming in, neither of those impacting the neighborhoods there. So just make sure you're taking your time. I-10 looks good, 54, and now Trans Mountain has been reopened. So overall, things are starting to get back to normal after yesterday. That snow, that ice didn't do us any favors at all, but I'm happy to say if you're heading out the door in the next few minutes, you should be in pretty good shape here. But if that changes, we'll have another live checkup with that traffic coming up a little bit later on in the show.
Thanks, Nick. And coming up...
Welcome back in, and happening today, Socorro ISD is holding a job fair to fill various positions within that school district. Now, the fair is happening later today. It'll start at 4 o'clock and run till 6, so you still have time to get those resumes ready. It will be at the SISD District Service Center located at 12440 Rojas Drive. Candidates should bring at least 3 printed copies of that resume, the statement of eligibility of participating in an alternative certification program, and be prepared to meet and interview with school principals. Well, weather for it shouldn't be terrible. Yesterday, it might have been a little rough trying to get downtown, but hey, things looking a lot better on that ABC7 weather deck. Look outside, I'm seeing some blue sky.
And I'm seeing that tree.
Hey, if you are trying to fly, United Airlines, it's launching its own flight academy. The United Aviate Academy will recruit, develop, and train future pilots. Now, the airline is purchasing the West Wind School of Aeronautics in Phoenix, so regional here, and plans to integrate it into the Aviate program, which already helps develop and recruit aspiring United pilots. Now, the airline expects about 300 students to graduate from the academy in the first year. United hopes to hire more than 10,000 pilots by 2029. I will say I've looked up that salary. It's pretty competitive now.
Ooh, you could go.
Something to think about. I might.
We miss you here.
Hey, they've been outlawed in Texas, so why are they still here?
In a special report, we talk about El Paso's...
Now, 6 months have passed since one of the darkest days in our history. In the Catholic Diocese of El Paso wants victims to know the community is healing with them. A prayer service will be held for all of those affected by the August 3rd shooting. The diocese hopes this service brings the community together to show families are affected by the tragedy that took place here at Walmart that they aren't alone. You're watching video of the citywide memorial service that followed that tragedy. That prayer service is happening at the diocese at 5 o'clock for the injured and families who lost a loved one. There will be a gift from Pope Francis himself, a rosary from the Vatican. Bishop Mark Seitz has asked the Pope for a blessing for those affected. The Pope returned with 50 rosaries.
It's still a pretty fresh wound for a lot of people, and we want to make sure that that we're praying for those people. And the Pope really wanted to make sure that his voice is heard and his voice is present here with the Diocese of El Paso.
Everyone is welcome to attend tonight's service. Families affected are urged to call the diocese in advance to receive a rosary. The weekend deserves an award for that weather.
Oh, I agree.
I'll give you that.
Give me the award for that.
Yeah! Nicole brings us the good news. Nicole gets the good award.
Have a good day, everybody.